I remember the exact moment the world seemed to tilt. The letter in my hand felt heavier than paper should, and my fingers trembled as I unfolded it, each crease slicing through my chest like glass. My Aunt Margaret, my rock, my quiet shield, had been excluded from my uncle's will. The words stared back at me, cruel and official, and I could feel the walls of the cold, sterile lawyer's office pressing in. The air smelled of polished wood and faint anxiety, echoing the sting of betrayal that settled in my bones. I couldn't help but flash back to the last family gathering, the one that seemed innocent at first. Whispers hovered in corners, hushed laughs cutting through their chatter, and I caught the sharp glances aimed at Margaret, like daggers hidden behind polite smiles. My cousins lounged in their perfect chairs, smirking just enough to let the world know they were enjoying this secret, savoring a triumph I could barely comprehend. Decades of loyalty, decades of quiet sacrifice, ignored, dismissed, erased. I saw her face again, the tear-streaked cheeks when the lawyer had explained the exclusion. It was a humiliation so profound it reached into the marrow, settling there like poison. My throat tightened, my pulse thundered, and I could feel the invisible barrier that had been erected between her and what was rightfully hers. Neighbors who had somehow caught wind of the letter cast their silent judgments, subtle contempt etched into every glance. The public nature of it all crushed her with quiet grace. She bore it with dignity, swallowing her anger, her sorrow, her disbelief, refusing to let them see the storm behind her calm exterior. I drove afterwards, gripping the steering wheel as if it could anchor me against the whirlwind of rage and helplessness that churned inside me. And there it was, on the desk of that office, the envelope containing the final will, cold, silent, deadly, a testament to greed, a monument to betrayal. Its stillness was deafening, a cruel reminder that Margaret's lifetime of devotion had been overlooked, dismissed, and mocked. But I swore then, in the echoing quiet of that room, that this injustice would not stand. Not while I was breathing, not while I could fight for her. I can still feel the weight she carried, a burden invisible to everyone but me. Margaret's life was a tapestry of sacrifice, each thread woven with quiet endurance that no one seemed to notice. I remember her juggling multiple jobs, nursing my uncle through illness, offering her unwavering support while the rest of the family turned a blind eye. She was the backbone no one acknowledged, the quiet force holding our fragile family together. Late at night, I remember her sitting beside me, listening to my own struggles, offering comfort with a tenderness that never made headlines. Those small acts of love, the whispered encouragement, the gentle hand on my shoulder, they were invisible to the world, but etched into my memory. I flash back to family dinners, the very tables that should have been her sanctuary. She was sidelined subtly, her opinions brushed aside like dust on a shelf, invisible yet sharp in their dismissal. She had confided in me, her voice low, trembling even, about relatives who claimed to love her, but schemed behind her back, their betrayal a constant shadow over her heart. I see her childhood, shaped by hardship, a resilience forged in struggle, unappreciated until this cruel moment. Her dreams, travel, freedom, her own life had been sacrificed again and again for the family she loved, now trampled by exclusion from the very inheritance that should have honored her. Her quiet tears, hidden behind polite smiles, resurface in my mind. I can still see the way she masked the depth of her pain, carrying it like a secret wound. The pattern of manipulation, subtle gaslighting, constant dismissal, all of it had sculpted her into the strong, restrained woman she is, but I could feel the injustice piercing us both. Anger swells inside me, fierce and uncompromising, ignited by years of witnessing her silent suffering, now mirrored by this blatant betrayal. I vow, silently but with every fiber of my being, that I will honor her, that the world will see the truth, and her dignity, finally, will be restored. I stopped waiting for answers and started digging for them. Night after night, I sat alone, scrolling through old emails, archived messages, scanned documents, anything that carried fingerprints of the family's hidden agendas. Every subject line felt like a lie in disguise. Every attachment told me more than they ever intended me to know. While I worked in silence, my cousins grew louder. Their arrogance bloomed in public, careless and proud, like people who believed the game was already won. They laughed easily, spoke boldly, never once suspecting that I was quietly building the strategy that would tear their confidence apart. I began to notice the sabotage, subtle at first, whispered comments about Margaret's instability, quiet attempts to question her finances, casual remarks designed to plant doubt in other people's minds. They weren't just excluding her, they were trying to erase her credibility, one rumor at a time. I reached out beyond the family to people who had watched this dynamic for years. Allies who had kept their distance finally spoke up. Their voices carried long suppressed truths, stories of manipulation, favoritism, and greed that had been normalized for decades. What I heard confirmed my worst fears and sharpened my resolve. Then I confronted a family friend, the one who had dropped a hint weeks earlier, and quickly changed the subject. I didn't circle the truth. I cornered it. When I pressed, their face drained of color. That was when they admitted it. There was another envelope, hidden, quietly set aside, unknown to almost everyone, an envelope that could change everything. Margaret started blaming herself. I could hear it in her voice, the guilt weighing her down. "I don't want to tear the family apart," she said softly, as if her existence was the problem. I took her hands and looked her straight in the eyes. I told her the truth, that she wasn't the cause of the tension. She was the reason it had finally surfaced. That moment sealed our alliance. The family hosted another gathering. Confident, careless. They underestimated us completely. I watched from the edges, listening closely, documenting every word, every glance. They thought I was just another quiet observer. They had no idea I was collecting proof. Patterns became impossible to ignore. They bragged about assets that didn't legally belong to them. They leaked false narratives to control perception. They mocked Margaret's quiet strength, mistaking her dignity for weakness. Every insult added another layer to my certainty. I met secretly with a lawyer and a financial advisor. Behind closed doors, we traced paper trails and uncovered loopholes no one had expected. Possibilities opened up, paths toward reversal that once seemed impossible. For the first time, justice felt tangible. Still, fear crept in. I imagined the backlash, the possibility of complete estrangement, the risk of public scandal. I stood at the edge of it all, knowing that once I moved forward, there would be no turning back. Late at night, Margaret called me. Her voice cracked when she thought I couldn't hear it. The composure she showed the world was fracturing in private, and in those moments, listening to her quiet pain, my resolve hardened into something unbreakable. I wasn't just protecting her anymore. I was preparing to avenge her. The phone rang late that night, sharp against the quiet of my apartment. I answered, and a voice I barely recognized whispered words that made my blood freeze. There was a second envelope, hidden, from my uncle, containing amendments that favored Margaret. Shock hit me first, a cold jolt that traveled from my chest to my fingertips. My heart raced uncontrollably as the realization sank in. This wasn't just hope anymore. The power shift was within reach, and it could change everything. I didn't hesitate. I tracked down the lawyer who held the envelope, a man whose calm exterior barely concealed the weight of secrets he'd carried for years. Piecing together the hidden plan my uncle had left behind felt like assembling a puzzle the family never wanted me to see. Every document, every clause, every subtle amendment revealed intention, foresight, and justice that had been silenced too long. Margaret's face betrayed the hesitation she felt. Doubt flickered in her eyes, the fear of renewed conflict haunting her. I don't want to make things worse, she murmured, her voice fragile. I took her hand and said firmly, "This is justice, not revenge. We have to see it through." Meanwhile, the cousins remained oblivious, their arrogance shining brighter than ever. They laughed, plotted, and whispered, completely blind to the storm quietly forming against them. I scheduled a confidential meeting with an independent investigator, laying out everything we had uncovered. The proof of financial manipulation and coercion by my cousins was staggering. Their schemes, meticulously crafted, had left a trail. And now we had it all. A mix of exhilaration and trepidation surged through me. Every step of this plan carried risk, every move measured, yet the tension of executing it against those who had humiliated Margaret made it electrifying. I saw Margaret's eyes flicker with cautious hope, a light piercing the shadow of humiliation she had carried just days ago. The stark contrast was almost painful to witness. The proud woman I knew, tempered by betrayal, now standing on the edge of vindication. I spent hours preparing documents, evidence, and a strategy for the public and legal confrontation that was about to unfold. The weight of decades of family betrayal pressed down on me, yet I welcomed it. And all around us, a storm of emotional intensity gathered, thick and unrelenting, signaling that the coming showdown would be unavoidable, decisive, and irreversible. The world was about to witness what had been silenced for far too long. I called for a formal family meeting, choosing the moment with precision, ensuring every eye would be on us when the second envelope was revealed. The room buzzed with false confidence, but I could feel the tension coiling beneath the surface, ready to snap. As Margaret stepped forward, holding the envelope like a shield of truth, my cousin's smirks faltered. The smug arrogance that had carried them through years of deceit vanished in an instant. I could see their disbelief ripple across their faces, raw and unguarded. I cleared my throat and read aloud the key passages, my voice steady, cutting through the room's thick anticipation. Every word landed like a hammer blow. Silence followed, broken only by the collective gasp and muttered apologies from those who had never dared question them before. The legal advisors confirmed Margaret's position, their authoritative voices sealing the reversal. Publicly, they exposed the manipulations and coercion that had kept her from what was rightfully hers. Every lie, every deceitful act was laid bare for all to witness. Family, friends, and onlookers watched the scene unfold, the humiliation now redirected toward those who had plotted against her for years. Whispers of shock and disbelief filled the air. The power dynamic finally reversed. I confronted my cousins privately, face to face, exposing the greed, the lies, and every attempt they had made to tarnish Margaret's reputation. The confidence they had wielded so carelessly crumbled under the weight of truth. Margaret spoke then, her voice unwavering, sharp with regained dignity. "This is mine. What was always mine," she said, reclaiming her position with a calm strength that silenced even the boldest critic. I made sure every moment was documented, coordinating media presence for transparency. The story of betrayal, perseverance, and ultimate triumph would be undeniable, preserved for everyone to see. A flood of emotional catharsis swept through us. Decades of subtle oppression, quiet humiliation, and suppressed anger were overturned in one decisive moment. The family was left in stunned silence. The balance of power irrevocably changed. As I watched Margaret, I sensed her pride and gratitude. In that quiet, fleeting moment amidst the upheaval, victory was hers. Justice had been served, legal, financial, and emotional, and the tension that had haunted us for years finally released. The aftermath was immediate and undeniable. Family dynamics shifted irreversibly. Alliances that had seemed solid for years crumbled, and those who had wronged Margaret now faced social and financial consequences they could no longer ignore. The smug confidence that had carried them for so long dissolved into shame and whispers behind closed doors. Margaret began to rebuild her life with deliberate care. Freedom returned to her in waves. Plans for travel she had postponed for decades. Personal projects shelved for loyalty to others, all now within reach. I watched her reclaim each piece of herself with a quiet, fierce determination, the weight of years of suppression finally lifting. I reflected on everything: the cost of silence, the courage required to confront betrayal, and the power that comes from refusing to let injustice stand. Every moment of fear, hesitation, and anger had led to this, and the lessons were impossible to ignore. Emotional healing began in earnest. Margaret spoke of long-suppressed dreams, the aspirations she had hidden behind duty and loyalty. Her voice carried a mix of relief and wonder, a woman rediscovering herself after a lifetime of careful compromise. My cousins, once so arrogant, retreated into the shadows of public shame. The knowledge of their manipulations and deceit weighed heavily, leaving them struggling to navigate the very world they had tried to control. I documented everything: the revelations, the confrontations, the legal outcomes, every detail preserved for posterity, a guide for those who might face similar betrayals, a testament that truth can eventually prevail. Margaret and I grew closer than ever. A deep, mutual respect and gratitude formed the foundation of our renewed family loyalty, stronger than anything that had existed before. In her strength, I found my own calm satisfaction. The echoes of anger that had driven me now transformed into a serene, steady resolve. Lessons crystallized: trust is earned, resilience is essential, and greed always carries consequences. The final financial and legal resolutions were tangible proof that justice, when pursued wisely and relentlessly, can be achieved. That evening, as we sat together in quiet reflection, the storm of betrayal and revenge behind us, a sense of peace settled over us. Margaret's eyes sparkled with the freedom she had fought so hard to reclaim, and I knew we were beginning a new chapter, one written not in fear or suppression, but in dignity, strength, and hard-won justice. I want you to hear this, not just read it. The story of betrayal, silence, and ultimately justice. Margaret's journey was more than a family dispute. It was a lesson in endurance, in the quiet strength it takes to survive being overlooked, dismissed, and humiliated. Every moment taught me the power of observation, the patience required to wait for the right opportunity, and the precision of strategic action when confronting familial treachery. It isn't just about reacting, it's about seeing, listening, and moving when the stakes are highest. Through it all, Margaret's unwavering dignity shone. Even when the world turned against her, she held her head high, reminding me, and now you, that standing by those you love in moments of injustice is not optional. It is essential. There is hidden strength in quiet endurance, in allowing truth to reveal itself slowly without forcing it. She endured decades of subtle oppression, yet when the moment came, she was ready. The revelation of the second envelope, that cinematic, earth-shaking turning point, changed everything. It was the pivot where humiliation became vindication, where silence became a roar. I learned lessons I will carry for life. Trust cautiously, honor family loyalty, and reclaim power from those who try to suppress it. Justice is not always immediate, but it is inevitable when you act with clarity and purpose. I urge you to remain vigilant. Document the injustices you witness. Act decisively when betrayal strikes, and do not let fear dictate your response. Resilience and dignity, these are the ultimate forms of revenge. Reflect on this story, share your own experiences, and remember, triumph often comes quietly, built on patience and courage. Margaret's victory is not just hers. It is a universal reminder that truth, once revealed, can topple arrogance, reclaim dignity, and restore justice. And if you hold on to that, no betrayal, no injustice can ever truly break you.